For a second consecutive season, can Oregon make a statement as a double-digit underdog against a national power? Welcome to the Voice of College Football as we break down Week 1 for you. Georgia, Oregon in Atlanta. Neutral site. Yes, neutral site in Atlanta. Dan Lanning will be fired up for this one. He left Georgia as defensive coordinator, where he helped lead the Dogs to a national championship for the first time in 42 years. He is now the head man running his own program in Eugene, Oregon. Let's look at the matchup. Let's start at quarterback for the Ducks. Not unfamiliar to the Georgia defense is Bo Nix. Bo Nix at Auburn, of course, for the past 3 seasons, 0-3 against Georgia. Bo did reasonably well against the Dogs, but it was overmatched in these 3 games. 21-38 last year, 217 through the air, no touchdowns, 1 pick. Bo against Georgia back in 2020, 21-40, 177 through the air, no TDs, and 1 pick. Bo is a freshman against Georgia in another loss. 30-50, had to put it up 50 times in that one, 245 yards with a touchdown and no picks. Do we know that Bo Nix will be the starter against Georgia? No, we don't technically know it. Dan Lanning is not letting anything out of camp, not even the offensive line rotation. Nothing. He wants Georgia to know nothing. He wants to keep all his cards close to the vest, and that includes the quarterback position. Jay Butterfield and Ty Thompson are 2 very talented players. Ty Thompson is the highest rated recruited quarterback in the history of Oregon football. He's been on campus for 2 years, so he is vying for the job as well. Most money is on Bo Nix securing that position. And again, teeing it up against the Georgia defense. You got to think, does Dan Lanning, in his heart of hearts, think, okay, we've got a bit of an advantage because Bo Nix knows that Georgia defense? Or, even though I want to settle on a starter in Week 1 and have that starting quarterback take us through the entire schedule in 2022, of course, I don't want to have a quarterback controversy, but does the Georgia defense know Bo? No C.J. Verdell, no Travis Dye. Verdell's off to the NFL. Travis Dye, ouch, going to USC in the offseason. So Oregon, fairly inexperienced at running back, but they got 2 super speedsters in Seven McGee and also Byron Cardwell, who did rush for 3 touchdowns and 417 yards as a Duck in 2021. You also have Sean Dollars in the mix against that tough Georgia defense. Chris Hudson comes back, 31 catches, 2 touchdowns. But actually, the young receivers may be more talented than the guys that left, but still inexperienced against a very talented Georgia secondary. Injuries definitely hurt this Oregon offensive line in 2021. Still, the team finished as a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award. Here in 2022, they have yet to play a game, and the injuries are mounting already in August camp. Josh Connerly, the coveted number 1 rated offensive tackle in the country coming out of high school, who knows? He may be pressed into duty at either right or left tackle. This Oregon offense will, of course, face the vaunted Georgia defense. But how vaunted could it be? Because that national championship D is pretty much playing on Sundays this fall. 5 drafted in the first round, 15 overall players for the Georgia Bulldogs taken in the 22 NFL draft. It was one of the great defenses of all time. The only team that had success against the Georgia defense was in the SEC championship game when Bryce Young had time to throw. So it was a stellar effort by an Alabama offensive line to give Bryce Young time to throw. And then 2 of the best wide receivers in college football, John Mechie and Jamison Williams in particular, ripped up Georgia's Achilles heel. It's secondary. That was the only way that was going to happen. And so Oregon's offensive line needs to give Bo Nix that kind of time. And I don't know if Bo Nix can deliver like Bryce Young. Those 2 monsters along the Georgia interior line, Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, they're gone. They as a tandem were a wrecking crew. Jalen Carter still around, and he will probably be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft in 2023. But other than that, they're pretty inexperienced up front for the Dogs, but plenty of high 4 and 5 stars to go around with Warren Brinson and Nazir Stackhouse in particular. In recent years for the Dogs at linebacker, we've seen Roquan Smith, we've seen Nakobe Dean. Now is the time for Nolan Smith to be that superstar. He's already an impact player, really good player. He was the #1 rated player coming out of high school. He needs to step up and be a star. He was the 5th leading tackler on the team last year. In the secondary, of course, the last time we saw the Dogs on the field against Bama, it was Keely Ringo taking one to the house off of a Bryce Young interception to wrap up Georgia's national championship. Chris Smith is also back at defensive back. Tyke Smith, the one-time transfer from West Virginia, comes back after missing almost all of 2021. Now let's look at the Georgia offense against the Oregon defense. Stetson Bennett. Georgia fans, are you still trying to get rid of Stetson Bennett and play somebody else like a Carson Beck? I know that the quarterback room is loaded for Georgia, but Stetson Bennett is the undoubted leader of this team, of this offense, of this program. Right now, he's the face of the program. And why not? Consider what he accomplished in 2021. JT Daniels won the job. Stetson Bennett, for a second consecutive year, couldn't win the job, and JT Daniels was handed the job halfway through the 2020 season and then won it again in 21 coming out of camp. Stetson Bennett got his chance, and he delivered. Of course, he was supported by a superior ground game, the best wide receiver room, or the best tight end / wide receiver room in college football, and again, a historic defense. But consider this being the Stetson Bennett moment. 4 to 5 minutes left in the national championship game. Stetson Bennett gets rushed, throws the ball out of bounds, tries to get rid of the ball. It's ruled a fumble. Bama scores to take the lead. Stetson Bennett's faced with the drive and faced with the nightmare scenario that he just lost the national championship game after losing to the same team in the SEC championship game. But Stetson Bennett came off the deck. Kirby Smart showed the guts and the faith and trust in Stetson Bennett to give him the ball to make play-action passes down the field, lead the touchdown drive that led to the game-winning score for Georgia. So think about Stetson Bennett and everything that he's faced throughout his career, and now he's the man. He knows that he can overcome anything. He knows that he can pull through in the clutch. I just expect that to skyrocket his confidence, his level of play, and his level of play was already good enough. He threw 29 touchdown passes last season. Stetson Bennett can avoid a pass rush well, and he can pick up first downs. That Georgia rotating factory line of running backs continues to run 2 off to the NFL in James Cook and Zamir White. Replace them with Kendall Milton and Kenny McIntosh. No strangers to big games and carrying the football when it counts. This is also the best tight end room in the country. Starting with the best tight end in the country, Brock Bowers. Oh my goodness, did he turn it on. Really all season he was exceptional. We knew he was the best going into the postseason, but man, he tore up Bama in the SEC championship game, and then he was just stellar. 56 receptions, 15 touchdowns, just a tremendous, tremendous player. High points of football is a matchup nightmare. He defines that term. Then you've got Eric Gilbert, who was unable to play last season, but he was the #1 rated tight end coming in to college football from LSU. Caught 35 balls for the Bayou Bengals a couple years ago. He is a stellar player as well. Darnell Washington is simply just a 5-star. However, Jermaine Burton, the best wide receiver on the team last year, goes to Bama. How do you win a national championship for Georgia over Bama, then go to Bama? Well, subject for another day. Best wide receivers coming back, most experienced for sure, Ladd McConkey and A.D. Mitchell combined for 50 receptions for the Bulldogs and along the offensive line. So Georgia under Kirby Smart, we know about the running game and the defense. The offensive line has been ridiculously good. The recruiting has been unworldly all over the place, but the offensive line does lose 2 to the NFL, 3 come back, but the rotation isn't quite set, so there is some uncertainty along the offensive line for Georgia, and they're facing one of the better defensive lines that they will face all season. Oregon is loaded up front on the defensive front, so this is one area in which maybe the Ducks can take advantage of Georgia. Maybe this is one of the few spots where Oregon has the advantage. Again, 3 out of 5 offensive linemen coming back for Georgia under new line coach Stacy Searles. You may say, Mark, how can Oregon take advantage? They've lost their best player, Kayvon Thibodeau. Yes, he's off to the NFL. When he was on his game, when he was not injured, he was a monster, but he's gone. Yes, but Brandon Dorlus comes back. He's expected to be a breakout player. Really good player right now. Breakout player. 3 incoming transfers. 1 from Washington, 2 from Nebraska in Casey Rogers and Jordan Riley. Then also the Washington player, Sam Taimani. Really fortify this Oregon defensive front that's going to be stout in the middle and as playmakers on the outside. Oregon's defensive line is one of the strengths of the team, as is linebacker. Justin Flo, stay healthy and show us what you can do on a regular basis. Also, of course, you've got Noah Sewell, one of the very best linebackers in the country with 114 tackles this past season. Oregon's got a nice little cornerback tandem in Gonzalez coming in from Colorado and Manning. They're a bit light, however, and Oregon's got some questions past that. When they've got a 3rd and 4th corner on the field, those guys are inexperienced and, again, a bit light in press coverage against some physical Georgia receivers, especially those tight ends that really could create some problems. That means Oregon is going to need Bennett Williams to be Bennett Williams. He's a guy that was going to be one of the best players in the Pac-12 last year, but he got hurt in September. He's back. That's good news for Dan Lanning and company, who has really locked it down in training camp. We don't know what's going on at Oregon. We've got our buddy Eric Scopel, who joins us from 247 Sports Duck Territory, that lets us know that he gets to go to camp but doesn't get to see anything, as Dan Lanning is tight-lipped about everything. Is he moving all the poker chips to the middle, saying, you know what, I'm going for broke. Let's get it. Nobody expects us to win. Let's do it. Let's shock the world and beat 17-point favorite and defending national champion Georgia. Dan Lanning in his first game, huge disadvantage here. Kirby Smart's got his program in place. Everybody's on the same page. Everything is buttoned up. The whole program is running like a well-oiled machine. Versus Dan Lanning in his first game's got to play on the road, neutral site, technically in Atlanta. Difficult situation for Dan Lanning and company there in trying to pull off a major upset. For the Oregon Ducks for a second consecutive year, of course, they went to Columbus as a 15-point dog and pulled it off against the Buckeyes. This game is huge for the Pac-12. The perception's down, the reality matches. It's down. Only 3 wins against 16 losses non-conference last year, despite the win by Oregon at the Horseshoe. Nobody expects Oregon to win this ballgame. They're a 17-point dog, but Oregon cannot get blown out by 5 touchdowns, then go back to the Pac-12, win the conference, and then expect to get any kind of college football playoff consideration. Oregon doesn't necessarily need to win the game, although that would be a huge splash for the conference and the biggest non-conference win for this conference since fill in the blank, forever. A long, long time. You could argue last year's win in Columbus against Ohio State, but the Buckeyes failed to make the playoff and win the Big Ten. This Georgia team should be back in the playoff. Oregon, stay close. Keep it a game, and people are going to give a little bit more respect to the Pac-12. This is a tough spot for Dan Lanning. If he's got any advantage, it's that, number one, he can go for broke, and he can try to communicate to his team to play loose. They've got nothing to lose. He can also rely on his knowledge of the Georgia personnel and the way Kirby Smart does things on both sides of the football. So those are slight advantages. But at the same time, it's a first game for Dan Lanning's program. He doesn't get Eastern Washington to warm up with and try things out and see what works and what doesn't work. This is going to be his first game day as the man, the head coach on the sideline in charge of everything. And sure, he's going to prep meticulously for not only Georgia, but for the game experience, for all the ins and outs, all the processes that have to be worked out in coaching a game in big-time college football. Whereas Kirby Smart, he started there in 2016. This is year number 7. Everything's buttoned up. He's got one of the best programs in college football. Everybody knows their role. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows the terminology. Everybody has those close-knit relationships. Everything's in play for Georgia, and they're basically playing at home on top of that against Oregon. Ducks, dogs, who do you like? Your thoughts down below right here at the Voice of College Football. Please hit the like button and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football.